Perfect.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of Entrepreneurship Lab. This is your host, Nevena Bajalatz, welcoming you once again to the podcast where we help you grow and scale your business. And today we have an incredible guest, especially talking about this podcast, about this topic on our podcast. His name is Matt Tait, and he's coming to us from US, Indianapolis. And he's a CEO of Decimal, which is an accounting company. He will tell us a little bit more about what they help people with and how they grow from just a startup to actually going through acquisitions, having over 100 employees. And what's also interesting about Matt is that he has his own podcast called After the First Million, where he's showcasing stories of entrepreneurs and business owners who have built their business from 1 to 50 million. So another great value you're going to get today. So let's welcome Matt. Matt, welcome to the show and thank you for being here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So tell us a little bit more. How did you become an entrepreneur yourself? You told me you're not an accountant, but you do have, in a way, tax and accounting firm. So have you always had an entrepreneurial spirit, or you were in corporate world? What led you to start your own business?
Well, so two things. One, my first career, I'm actually a recovering attorney. So I started my career out working as a lawyer, and ultimately I was a really bad lawyer and am a much better client than I was a lawyer. Um, but I also grew up in a family of entrepreneurs.
Mm.
And in fact, just this last summer in August, we did a family reunion and there were 60 people under one roof. And I looked around and what I noticed was that at one point there were 12 of us that had either run or were currently running a large company. And that's a pretty significant number for 60 people. And so I just grew up around the idea of trying to kind of break the mold of trying to do your own thing and also finding new and better ways to help people. And ultimately that's what kind of led me to Decimal is this isn't my first company. At my previous companies, I'd always kind of struggled with the accounting and bookkeeping side, whether it was hiring employees to do it or hiring accounting firms to do it. To be frank, they all kind of sucked. And so Jacob, my co-founder, and I decided that we wanted to solve that problem. And ultimately, our mission is just to make it easier to be a business. And there are some parts of running your own company that just aren't very fun. And I often joke the three worst things about running a company are HR, IT, and accounting. And we do accounting. And so it's been really great for us. We launched January of 2020. And kind of as you mentioned, in that time, we've grown significantly. We've helped over 1,000 businesses. And at this point today, we have, I believe, 110 employees.
Wow. I'm absolutely one of those people that accounting is not fun, taxes. So I absolutely need people like you and have people in my team as well to help me with that. Not just boring, but you really have to understand the numbers and those. Of course, as
Yeah.
CEO, you have to understand your numbers to a certain extent and basics, but it's definitely not my strength. So that's incredible. And tell us a little bit more about when you started. Did you guys started as like one simple office? How did you grew to have 110 employees? Do you have like offices in different places, franchise? How your business went? Like how did it develop in the last 5 years?
So this first phase of growth for us has been entirely as remote team members. Launching in January of 2020, we went remote, and then 6 weeks later, the world shut down and the pandemic hit, and so we were glad we were remote. And we just continued that today. We now have employees in 26 states in the U.S. and 5 countries around the world, and we firmly believe in building a great culture with amazing values and a team that works together, even if we're remote. And we've been able to really continue that, and it's a credit to the people that we've hired and the team that we've built, and I think the values that kind of stitch everything together. But certainly, as we look at our next phase of growth, there are some things that we're going to do to kind of increase that. But also, we have made two acquisitions. We're on the relatively smaller side of things, but that definitely also helps in growth. And
Yeah.
one of the things that we did, we bought a big company from KPMG. the big, large accounting firm. They called us about 2.5 years ago and asked if we wanted to buy a kind of tech services business from them, and it ended up being great. But before we looked at anything, we looked at the people side and wanted to make sure that they would integrate well into our culture and into our team, and even help enhance and improve that. Um, and they certainly have.
Yeah. So what are some challenges you had? I mean, COVID times were different, and what challenges you guys have today? How has business changed? And I mean, it was completely different those 2 years around COVID, how businesses were growing and in the direction they're going, and then even people and their mindset and things they want in business change. So what challenges you had then, and what challenges you're having now?
One challenge that kind of stitches together the whole thing is running a remote company is harder and it's different. You have to be a lot more intentional about everything that you do. I always joke with friends of mine that have great cultures with an office, that when you have an office, you can lazily build a good culture simply because people are around each other. They can go to lunch, they can hang out together, they can just generally kind of be together. When you're remote, you have to be more intentional. And when you're growing a really fast growing and large remote company, you make a lot of mistakes. And one of the mistakes that we've made over time was during the pandemic, everybody was working remote. And then shortly thereafter, everybody wanted to keep working remote. I think as we've gotten further away from the pandemic, people have started to understand in themselves what they need to be happy. And for a lot of people, that is a hybrid culture where you go into work in an office a couple of days a week. Other people want a full office experience. During the first couple of years after COVID, we hired and we dealt with a lot of people who were still figuring that out. And it's helped us to kind of hone in on who the perfect team member is at Decimal, and how to like really hire and target and train remote team members. But that was certainly a learning experience for us, because I also think it was a learning experience for the people that we were talking to and hiring. And I certainly think the world has changed. I think we've now kind of reached a little bit more of a normalization where people understand more who they are and what they're looking for. And some people want the flexibility, some people want the structure. And to be fair, that's totally fine. We just prefer the flexibility for our team, and that's been one of the things that we've worked really hard on. But one of the things that I think has been really important for us is so many companies, they have a mission and maybe they have values, but they're really just words on a wall, and it's nothing more than that. It's not something that they talk about a lot or really work on or contribute to, and it's not the shared language. For us, what we found as a growing remote company is the thing that provides us with that foundation and stitches us together is having very strong core values and talking about them a lot. And when our team members get kudos or testimonials from clients, we always tag or mention one or more values. And it creates this just shared language that we also use with our clients. And heck, we've fired clients when they don't adhere to our values, and team members if they don't as well. Like, those values are the core foundation of who we are. And by talking about them a lot and by living them out day to day, it's created a very strong foundation, even for a remote team that grows quickly.
Okay, that's really, really interesting. Definitely, times have changed, and I also know that through friends, through employees, yes, people are very much different, and some really love the office experience. And I love
Right.
the things you talked about values. So, continuing about talking about values, what kind of mindset did you develop over years or these 5 years going through different challenges that help you move forward, that help you grow so much? How do you deal with, like, what kind of things maybe are you using when it comes to mindset exercise to, when you have hard times or challenge, something like that help you as a founder and an owner?
So that's a great question. And certainly being a founder and being an entrepreneur is really, really hard. And I think so much of the social media and the press glorifies the role of starting your own company. And for those of us that have done it, and I've done it multiple times, it's like 90% terrible and 10% amazing. And there are some of us that love the 10% so much, we're willing to deal with the terrible 90% all the time. Um, and that's just part of it, that resilience. One of the things that's been really good for me is I've had success in business and I've had failure. And so in starting Decimal, I'd gone through the full spectrum. So I've seen what it's been like to do really, really well, and I've seen what it's been like to fail completely. And that perspective has really helped because what it shows you is during the highs, you can't get too high. You can't buy into your own hype. Once you do that, you're really starting to put yourself in a vulnerable position for failure. Two, when the lows come, you also can't get too low. You have to try to ride out a middle ground. And one of the big things that has been important for me as a founder is I always talk about three things that every founder needs to personally focus on and have as their own support system. Number one is focusing on your own kind of physical and mental health, whatever that means for you. For me, I work out every day and I practice meditation. Those two things help ground me mentally. And I also have habits and hobbies that are outside of work. I also have three kids that take up a ton of time, and I'm an unpaid Uber driver. Um, but that's kind of the personal, physical, and mental health is number one. Number two is finding a community of like-minded people. For me, I have a CEO group that meets on a monthly basis, and it provides me with a safe place to talk about the wins and the losses and just kind of commune with people that are going through what I'm going through. And then number three is finding a paid coach. And having a paid coach has been very helpful for me because he's been good at holding up a mirror and saying, hey, here's what you really suck at, and here's what you need to work on. But also being able to tell me, here's what you're really great at. And by the way, take a minute to be okay with being really good at something because I actually find that a lot of entrepreneurs and founders don't take the wins very well. Like we move on from the wins way too quickly and we focus so much on the losses. And having a coach and a support group has helped me to kind of normalize around that. But those are kind of the three things that I've learned over my career are really helpful is one, focusing on your own physical and mental health. Two, finding a community of people that are like-minded and going through what you're going through. And three, finding a paid coach.
Wow, that's an amazing advice. Thank you for that, Matt. I absolutely love it. So you kind of make everything seems easy. I know it was not easy. So can you share with us, for someone who is listening, we have a lot of people who are just starting or want to grow, right? And you went from, 0 to 100 something employees. How did you guys, was it some previous experience? What were some things you were doing to, in general, market your company or get sales, get customers and clients? Because without that, of course, there's no running business. So
Yeah.
how was that in that time? What strategies you used to, get to the market and get clients?
So I think two things are really important. Number one, you have to build a good foundation for the economics of a business. Like ultimately, to be successful, you have to make money, period. A lot of people actually don't think that through really, really well. And so what you need to figure out is when you do have a client, how do you service that client or that customer in a profitable way? And how do you serve then 10, 100, 1,000? And building yourself kind of towards that profitability and understanding what your margins are and how to kind of create a good economic structure for the business is really important. Number two is you need to also make sure that you are making more money than you're spending on sales. And so I see too many companies that spend $2 to make $1. That doesn't work. It works for short periods of time with tech companies, with venture investors, because they're able to lose money to gain market share and then they close that gap. But it only works if they close that gap. And the pandemic and post-pandemic fundraising environment has been a really hard time for a lot of those companies that were unable to close the gap because they just lost value and or failed. So number one is really figuring out how to run that as an economic thing. Number two is just getting off of Go. So do unscalable things first. The first thing that we did as a business was it was just Jacob, my co-founder, and I would do the sales, he would work with the clients. And for me, I was just figuring it out. And anytime something worked, I would kind of write down what I thought worked. Anytime something didn't work, I'd write down what I thought didn't work. And I constantly start tracking that until I created some data points that said, go this way and don't go that way. But it's really at the very beginning in particular, you have to hustle your way through it and you have to be able to learn and adapt really, really quickly. You also have to understand that your first clients are most likely really bad scalable clients. Like they're really good to learn from, but then at some point you're going to be a bigger business and you're going to say, gosh, I need to either reprice my first clients or just fire them because they're not good. And most people don't have the discipline to actually do that. And they don't understand that actually some of the best things you can do are firing clients. And it feels hard because you attach a lot of value and you certainly can have that nostalgia and carry it through, but you don't want to overdo it. And you do those unscalable things to learn. And then once you do learn, you have to be very intentional about continuing down that path to profitability and cutting out the things that aren't profitable. Does that kind of answer your question a little bit?
Absolutely. I love it. I absolutely love it. So first you focused on sales, and then your partner was co-founder was serving the clients in a way, providing the service, and you just focus on the sales. And then yes, as you grow and scale, understanding that this is interesting because I actually, one of the clients I worked with before, she scaled her accounting firm in Dubai, and I remember I was the one who pushed her as a consultant to increase her prices and charge more. And she was like, but I'm going to lose clients. And then she told me, oh, I only lose a couple of clients and I hated those
Right.
clients anyway. So she was like, I
Yep.
did not want to work with them anyway anymore. So that is so resonating with me because I remember that story. And that's so true. And I always tell to people, you as you're scaling and growing and increasing prices, you are now going to another market, and those who fall off, they don't belong there anymore. It's absolutely fine to deal with
It
that.
is.
Yes. So if you're about to go back, I like to ask this question. And there is something about business or building your company that you wish someone told you earlier that you believe maybe will help you. What it would be?
I think for me, it's going to be okay. You go through so many things, and when you're deep into it, you think everything is just the most immediate thing. And it's like I tell my team now, when we have an escalation from a client that's unhappy, I always tell them, take a deep breath, walk away, come back, write an email response, walk away, come back, review it, and then send it. Too many times, particularly as first time entrepreneurs, you think, oh my gosh, I got something from a client. Stop everything, stop everybody doing everything. Let's figure out what this is. It's a massive fire drill. And you're not actually thinking, you're only reacting. And if I would have known back then that everything was going to be okay, that you can save that client, that if they churn, guess what? You'll get another one, that you can take a deep breath and you react better and in ways that improve the relationship, improve the business. And I think that's a huge thing, is just like taking a deep breath and realizing that everything will be okay is a huge thing.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. And I was recently thinking about this because moving to Zanzibar, I'm dealing with a lot of hospitality
Oh,
industry and building my own. And there are always some complaints. And in the past, of course, I dealt and consult so much on customer service and dealing with customers myself when I worked in corporation in the past. And like you say, looking back, you realize you know, yes, some clients you might lose. In some industries, you might get a bad review or something. But at the end of the day, like not taking it personally. I mean, what I see is that
yeah,
when someone wants to complain, they can complain about the smallest thing. You can like kill yourself to try and make them happy, and it will not work. So not take it personally. I believe also when you deal with some of the clients
it's a
and their
great point.
reactions and their comments, it's very, very helpful. So, what would be, as we are wrapping up, one of your final advices that you have for everyone listening who is out there hustling, trying to build and scale their business? What is would be maybe your advice, something that we haven't mentioned and you believe it's very important?
I think there's no replacement for just getting your hands dirty, rolling up your sleeves and doing something. I think so many people over plan, and you definitely need to create a plan, but so many people over plan, and momentum breeds momentum. And so just get started doing, get started learning, get started improving, put the habits in place to review and get better. But honestly, like I think so many people get stuck on the starting block of companies, of ideas, of thoughts, of new things. And I just encourage people to get going, get started, get doing, and be okay with the hustle that you have to do, particularly at the beginning of a company, and ultimately work your way out. Today, they don't let me do anything. I'm officially not allowed to sell, and God knows I can't do accounting, so I can't help our clients. And you know, you'll get out of it one day, but at the very beginning, just roll up your sleeves and get working and get doing. And I think that's really important.
Thank you, Matt, so much. And I would like just to hear a little bit more about your podcast, and we can invite everyone as well to go and listen to your podcast because you are sharing an incredible stories there as well.
I appreciate it. So after the first million, particularly the first season, we focused on that period of time when you get after that first million. So many people talk about the startup phase of a business, and then other people talk about hey, I was successful. We built $1 billion company. There's this like messy middle of scaling a business that's really, really hard to do. And all the stuff that worked in scale up, all that doing unscalable things and getting off of go and doing that works during startup, but then you get to scale up and all of a sudden processes and structure become more important. And that can be hard for people like me who really hate structure and processes. And yet we want to continue to build a business and bring in people that are better than us at certain things. And that's what we talk about. We've got some amazing stories of some really cool people that have gone through it or coaches that have coached people. And ultimately, it's just some really cool people with some good stories.
I love it. So we'll invite everyone. It's called podcast. It's called.
It's called After the First Million.
All right, let's go and listen to After the First Million and get some more value from Matt. Thank you, Matt, for being here for sure today. And I want to thank everyone for listening. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Download the episode. Listen, as I always say, share with at least one person that can benefit from this content as well. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you in the next episode.